Okay, let's start again. Okay, so we were talking about Paulo. We were looking here at his piece of writing. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, this is like huge for him. And just the fact that he could write, and so I'm just going to go over it with you, and yeah, then I'll do a conference with him. So I went to bed with my cousin when he slept over, so I needed to ask him that part. He just said with my cousin. And I said, well, when was this happening? Well, when he slept over. So I said, well, let's write that in now. I feel like with a kid like this, sometimes I need to do the writing for them, because if I had sent him back to do this little part on his own, that would have been, I think, overwhelming, and he would have lost.
And he had already written a lot.
Yeah, he'd written 3 pages.
Before we were adding that. Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Okay, so, and then my cousin got up, and then he asked if he could get the big kangaroo. When we were fast to sleep, which I thought I'd talk to him about what the word is, asleep.
Okay.
Okay, fast to sleep. Then it was time for my cousin to go home, and so I was thinking maybe we should have a little talk about transition of time here, maybe a use of a time word.
Yeah.
Temporal words. And when he went home, so he'd written the first 2 pages, and then I said to him, well, usually in a personal narrative, which I went back to the checklist, and I didn't even go through it, but I just mentioned that we usually tell like what we were thinking or how we were feeling, and then he did another whole page. So when he went home, I felt sad because I wanted him to stay longer. So he,
What growth in writing for him. So as you think about this writing piece for Paulo, what do you kind of speculate is a next step for him as a writer? If you think of one thing to focus, because I know as you were reading it, I can tell that you had lots of ideas of things to conference with him about.
Right.
But if there's one thing that you would want him to work on, what do you think it would be?
Well, when I look at this, the part that he was missing here was when he slept over.
Okay.
And then the part down here was that transition from we went to sleep and then we woke up. So maybe adding some temporal words to help the reader understand.
Okay, so that can be a focus for him.
Right.
Now, would you want him to edit and make changes in this one, or do you want him to apply it to his next piece of writing?
Well, actually, the purpose, I think I would ask him to apply it to the next piece.
Okay.
If this had been the purpose of this one is we're going to make a year-end book, and it's just something that happened when I was in kindergarten.
Okay.
And so I told them that I would type these up, because for them to handwrite it, you can see the size of the writing, and I thought, the logistics and how many pages that would consume. So what I'm going to have them do is draw a picture, and then I will type in their text.
Okay.
And then we will make a booklet out of it.
So this will be like a class book.
This is a class book, yeah. If it had been something that had a stronger, actually, so this is my thinking now. We're going to do this shared experience today with the Cosley Zoo visiting us.
Right.
So I thought that maybe after having done this and kind of refreshing their thinking about personal narratives, maybe we could do an interactive writing first, just to after the Cosley Zoo visit, and then do that, trying use of temporal words and adjectives.
Okay.
Those are my 2 goals.
Your 2 goals for them. Okay, so how do you envision this looking and presenting this to your students? Because we've talked about a few different things today. We've talked about self-reflection. We've talked about next steps for next writing. So how do you envision now, kind of after talking about this, how it's going to look?
So I'm thinking after the visit today, tomorrow we could just generally have conversation. I think they need that oral part. So we'll have conversation about it. We'll do an interactive writing, and I'll put that on the chart paper, and then I will talk. We'll probably go back and highlight the temporal words that we used, the adjectives that we used, which I'm going to emphasize those before we start saying, remember, these are the things we want to do. And then after we get through the interactive part of it, saying now, talk about, how could you do this on your own? And then after I give them the opportunity I'm going to let them draw because it's going to be a 45-minute presentation to an hour, whatever. I'm hoping that there's just one thing they'll key in on, like if they bring a frog or whatever.
Bird or something.
Yeah, and I'm going to encourage that. So I'm going to ask them to draw a picture of something that they really were interested in, and then write what happened with that. And then afterwards, I think the next, well, actually, I think I'm going to give them the checklist before we start.
Before you start interactive or before they go back to write on the road?
I'll talk about it interactively, or I'll talk about it with the whole class. Trying to decide if the best thing, I don't know that giving each one of them one, but maybe just posting it somewhere, like I can put one at each table, so that they, as they're writing, they can say, oh, did I do this, did I do this? And then after they've done their first, writing, have them mark it. And then maybe we could, if we have time, we could do another, like a second draft, a more polished copy, and then have them mark it in a different color to see what improvement they made.
So kind of like an idea to be self-reflective too.
Right, and one of our standards is that they're strengthening their writing with adult support.
Okay.
So, that would be good if they could do it in 2 different colors and see the change from their first try to with the support of an adult, what they might do. So I think that might be a good plan.
Yeah. I mean, you've got some good thinking going here, and you've got an idea of how to move these guys forward. Yeah, these are both ones.
Some of them, it's a little bit harder, and I mean, like this is
Chris.
And even his picture, it changes when you ask him what this is. It changes each time.
Each time you talk to him.
And actually, Paulo, when he started, a completely different picture. I thought the picture was real based on something that I'd have been told earlier in the year. There was a fire and the tree caught on fire.
Oh.
And, but then he told Mrs. Buckles that it was a dream. And I think he's looking. So I'm not really sure. So she just took him, and then they said, well, let's just wait with that one, and they started a new one. So they did this together.
Okay. And then he ended up starting the one
and then
about
he
his
did
cousin.
this independently, based on his picture of him and his cousin.
I wonder if showing him both of these and thinking about the qualities of a personal narrative, or that, I wonder if he could reflect on which one was a personal narrative.
Yeah.
And
which one was.
Like that example, non-example.
And in this situation, I'm not sure he knows whether the fire was real or a dream.
He may not, yeah.
Because he was young when it happened, I think, so it wasn't really a kindergarten thing.
Oh, okay. So really not even for the kindergarten book of things
Right.
that happened in
Right.
kindergarten. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, and Kate
One sunny day, Dylan
R.
Dylan R. Oh, no, I said R. Dylan R. and I were chasing a butterfly in the grass. I caught.
I'm not sure how he got that, and I think yesterday when the new native language tutor was with them,
yes.
She maybe spelled that for them
Oh, okay.
instead of having them sound it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, wow, Caden's
Yeah.
made some changes since I've been testing for a couple days.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you can see
I
that.
caught the butterfly, and I showed to everyone enjoy. I felt happy.
So I did talk to him about that, enjoy. So, but I said, could you say that in a sentence? Like, how did you feel? And he said, I felt happy. So I wrote that out for him. But you can see the kids who've had issues with language are definitely improving just.
I mean, where would you see as a next step to go with Caden?
I would like him to continue just building confidence. Well, first of all, oral language, and then confidence in himself to sound things out, because he's just hitting his stride there. So just being really, really, reinforcing the positives that, oh, good job, each time. And so I think it's building confidence and stamina with him. I think he's just getting his stride there.
What kind of feedback do you think would move him forward the most?
He definitely needs positives. And then, let's see. So I'm thinking one sunny day, Dylan and I were chasing a butterfly. And this was with some support. So, I said, well, Tom, when it happened, and he said one day. And I said, well, what kind of day was it? Was it cold? Was it cloudy? You know, I did prompt a little bit. He said it was a sunny day. I caught the butterfly, trying to think, and showed it to everyone. I felt happy. I almost think I could do a little more prompting with him and say, well, if you showed it to everyone, what was their reaction? You know? But I just, for him, this is huge. So I would worry about pushing too much, like expecting too much.
I agree.
Because then I think he would shut down.
So then I think what's one thing that we could tell him, yeah, like reflecting back on his writing, what's one thing that we could share with him that would, that would help him move forward? Because I agree with you, he needs just one thing to work on. He does. You're right, he does shut down.
Well, he could also use some temporal words. There aren't any in here that I've seen. Which I think is true of all, probably.
So that could be, and we're going to make that, sounds like you're going to make that the goal for the interactive writing.
Right. And, I mean, he could describe the butterfly with an adjective. However, again, I don't want to push him too much because for him then, but as a class, those are the two things I think I would focus on.
And even, you know, if you're applying it in the class, he could apply something.
Right.
Too.
Right. Yeah. And if I'm teaching it to the class, he might hear it, and it would just be, oh, well, she's telling the class. But if I would say, you know, like if I would focus just on him, I think then he would feel that pressure.
So it sounds like if you say it to the class, he has a better chance of applying it than if you were just giving that feedback specifically to him.
Right. Unless I were to do it one-on-one with him, and then I feel it's more me doing it than him doing it. I mean, at that point,
work.
Right. Yeah.
I with that enjoy. I know. I hear you say that you want that in a sentence, but I hear that as voice of like enjoy. Like as a closing. I mean,
right.
That's how I heard it when I read it.
Or, okay, and I showed it to everyone. Yeah, I guess it, you know, I could see it that way. That just doesn't sound like him, and so that doesn't seem like his voice.
I was hearing the voice, but you're right.
You're right. From somebody else, like you and I.
Yeah. Or
But
someone like Izzy, maybe.
Yeah,
she would put that. Izzy would put that at the end of her writing.
Yeah, but that just doesn't seem like his voice, and so
then that makes sense.
Well, you know what? I'm going to think about that. I'll go back with him, and you know, maybe the one thing I would want to do with him is we'll just read it over, ask him what he thinks, and then okay. And when you look at the checklist for them. And we're not really doing beginning, middle, and end, pages, like we did earlier.
I understand that, yes.
Okay. So the story indicated who was there, what they did, and how the characters felt. So they don't say temporal words, but without the temporal words. So maybe we need to talk about, like, it doesn't use the word when in here, but I think without the temporal words, sometimes, you know how kindergartners are, it looks like statement,
yes. Or
and how do we pull those, how do we pull those
I was going to look and see what it said here in the rubric, because I'm wondering where temporal words come in, because that comes into first grade. The writer put her pages in order. She used words such as and then, so, and that goes under transitions.
Yeah.
So the level for kindergarten is the writer put his pages in order.
Okay. So I guess I'm expecting, but I think, so do you think that at the end of kindergarten, it's okay to start expecting I mean, if I'm doing lessons on it, I could maybe expect a little bit of it?
Well, looking at your class as a writer, what do you think about their readiness for that skill?
I think I have a lot that are probably, they would be ready enough. And I have some who are going to be lucky to just get some statements.
Okay.
If they could do a beginning statement, a middle statement, and an end statement.
Okay.
This one in particular.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree. So then, what would your expectation be for transitions, knowing where they fall in the rubric?
What would my expectations be as
I
would hope that they would try to add more.
Okay.
And, reinforce that with positive feedback. And just then with sharing, kind of pointing out that, like, so then when they share with the group, ask the kids, she used the word then, when, soon. Did those words help you? How did they help you to understand it? So maybe as we're sharing and the other kids are listening, if they can give feedback and kids can see how important it is to start using those words. And I'm not going to, I would think if they could use two words, two temporal words, that would be, then they're getting there.
But it sounds like it's in that gradual, that you're modeling it right now.
Right.
And then maybe taking it to that shared experience.
Yeah.
They're making growth.
They are.
I mean, they're really moving along.
I was wondering if they would ever write, and I can't believe when they just took off. It was like, wow.
I know. There's such growth of writing in kindergarten. It's amazing how much they change, and just once that clicks, where it goes.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't realize how the difference, like in third grade. It just seems to me that you have such visual, such obvious growth in kindergarten that maybe it's more subtle in third grade. Do you know what I mean? So it's just been very like, whoa.
Well, so now that you're coming up to the end of the first year of kindergarten, have you thought about how you would approach writing? What if you would approach writing the same or any differently going into next year now?
Yes, I would definitely do it. I mean, I've learned a lot. I feel like I've learned a lot, but I feel like there's so much then I hope next year that I make sure I implement. For example, what was I going to say? Just the need to use oral language in order. So I was doing the pictures, the drawing, and then the writing, but I think the oral language and developing vocabulary and for some kids just speaking in complete sentences and being very intentional about those practices. That if we're doing it if we can, so the whole thing, if I think it, I can say it, I can write it.
Yeah.
So
anything else you want to, as you look back and see where they've come?
I think celebrating, like, probably more opportunities to share their writing. And it's hard because it seems like it's always the kids who finish, who are more capable, and they finish and are ready to share. And for the other kids, it maybe takes them a while. And sometimes they struggle to read their own writing.
Yes, which is one of their standards for this.
Right.
For part of that, being able to read their own writing.
And because then that takes them through the whole process. I thought it. I said it. I wrote it. Maybe I fixed things. Whatever. And then I shared it with other people, and I got feedback about it. And then hopefully there's that reflection time. So I would say reflection's always been my weakness because I always feel like we're just finishing up, and it's time to move on to the next thing. It's time to move on to something else.
Yeah. And dealing with the half day, all day, I know that's been a challenge with the time part of it too. Right. So do you feel like you're going slower but moving along faster? Like you're gaining more because you're slowing down?
Definitely, yeah. I realized that, like, the writing plans that Mrs. Buckles and I had at the beginning of the year, in retrospect, it was like we may have been expecting too much then. And back then, and looking back on it, that's where it really occurred to me, oral language. Just really, really going with the oral language before they can do the. We were using the EET, expanding expression tool, which I do think it's good. It's something that she had where.
I remember her talking.
Yeah, what group does it belong to? What does it look like? Where is it found? I can't remember the other one right now. But they really just need to talk before they can write.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing, a plan for next year is really that oral rehearsal, that talking about writing, and maybe looking back at the plans you had at the beginning of the year and not expecting as much out of that.
the written, yeah.
For the written. Do you think being able to use the rubrics here, because I know we delved
These
into
have
this a
been
little bit
great.
later, do you think that'll help for that beginning of
Yes.
the year?
Well, and I guess the thing was, I was using this, but we were also integrating that, and I just think maybe it wasn't a bad thing to do. It was just, it was maybe a little early in the year for their developmental stage.
Okay.
I mean, I really think I'm looking at how they're developing, what they're able to do with language and cognitive abilities, and I think you just have to respond to that. And
Well,
it's
and
different.
we won't know what they have until they come in next year. It could be
Right.
a completely different
Yeah.
group of kids,
Right.
too. Does Adina have a way to assess that early on to give you guys an idea?
She did, and that might be a proactive thing that we should do, because she did take a couple of these kiddos and do some language assessments with them, and you know the ones
Yeah,
that fall
that's
into
great.
that
Yes,
category.
yes.
So she screened them, and I think it would be good. We do have, I think, 4 kids coming in from early childhood.
Okay.
Then I'm assuming you're going to need quite a bit of support with that, and then of course then you don't know besides that.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah.
That sounds like we've got a plan
Yeah.
for the future.
But I really appreciate, and I do want to spend more time like watching you with the reading part of it too, because that reading and writing are so integrated.
Yes.
And I think it was it Jan said something about if you had to give up something like a read aloud or writing, she said she felt writing was more powerful
Yes.
in developing literacy than the reading, and so I try to make sure that I leave plenty of time for writing.
For writing.
Which is hard to do with that half-day group.
It is. But we're finding opportunities to get more
Integrated
writing
into
them.
math. Or,
Yes, integrating every part of your day.
yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to ask you
Sure,
one
thank
last
you.
question.
Sure.
So as you reflect on our conversation today, how has that supported your learning? Just us sitting down to talk as you think about our conversation.
Just today or through the year?
Well, today too, but also through the year. But even just a
Okay.
little bit of what we talked about today, like how does that?
Just having somebody else look at it with you who understands, and you understand more than I do, because this is new for me. But so have somebody who knows the kids and understands not only what the standards are, the progressions. The kids' abilities, just to sit down and talk about things. I need to process things, which is then what I need to provide for my students to make sure they can process things.
So what works for you works for them
Right.
too.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you do know a lot about your kids. Don't sell yourself short because
Well, I think
you know
I do.
a lot about them.
I think
You do.
I'm sure I know the most about these
Yeah,
kids
you do.
of anybody in the school, but you know them as well as knowing some of this other stuff, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can support me with it.
Well, that's why we work together.
Yeah.
So
All right.
thank you so much.
All right.
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Michelle.